Welcome to the Baxter Building.
We make a point to do family dinner every week. Sunday at 7, on the dot, no matter what. We're all here.
Herbie, how's that sauce coming?
Yeah, I'll be the judge of that.
Okay. Okay, is this guy good or what? I want to add a couple cloves of garlic. Not because it's not delicious, I just want to add a little bit of zip, okay?
T-5.
Before we went up the first time, you couldn't turn invisible. Ben wasn't a rock. The best pilot in the world right here.
Yeah. Best looking, he means.
And Johnny never caught fire.
Ben has always been a rock. Johnny is Johnny.
Hi.
And I am right here. Whatever life throws at us, we'll face it together. As a family.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Marvel finally released the actual trailer for Fantastic Four, so we'll break it all down. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs here. Really hoping they don't make us wait an hour the next time they drop a trailer. Everybody just getting PTSD coming back from that Game of Thrones block of ice. Remember when Game of Thrones made us sit through that block of ice? Pepperidge Farm remembers. We are begging you, Marvel, when you drop that Avengers Doomsday trailer later this year, please don't make us wait an hour to actually watch it. Most of the really big stuff is in the trailer. Obviously, we're not seeing Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom anywhere, at least on screen, like not very obvious way. I'm not expecting to see him in any of the marketing, though, or the trailers that they do release. I think they'll save that for the theater. So when you actually go see the movie, you won't see him till like the actual post-credit scene or like the very end of the movie. But the whole idea is that Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom is meant to come from their universe, in their movie. Like, it'll be his first time in live action before you see him in Avengers Doomsday, because this movie is the last movie releasing before Doomsday, so it's like a big setup for that movie. This is just the beginning, though. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. Notice inside the Baxter Building when Reed Richards opens up his special blackboard here in the main living room, you actually see all these equations on his board. I think all these equations are related to the multiverse itself and his theory about multiple universes, which they referenced during Deadpool and Wolverine with the original version of Mr. Fantastic, the Reed Richards that came from Chris Evans' Fantastic Four movies.
Reed called it a metaphysical junkyard.
This equation not only confirms alternate dimensions, it suggests that parallel Earths exist on different dimensional planes.
Maybe at some point in one of the next Avengers movies, we'll see a Council of Reeds kind of scene where they're all working together. But just starting at the beginning of the trailer footage, they actually start like Sue Storm is giving a tour of the Baxter Building to this news crew, and it's after they've already gotten their powers. They said that the movie isn't meant to be an origin story, but I think they'll tell it through a lot of these videos that they release in-universe. Like I talked a little bit about this yesterday when you actually saw all the kids watching on TV their special launch, and in the trailer he talks about the first time we went up, we didn't have all these powers. So they've already gone to space the first time, they've gotten caught in the cosmic storm, gotten all their abilities, and now we're seeing them at the beginning of the movie. One of the other key differences, besides this just taking place in the 1960s of this alternate universe on their Earth, is that the Fantastic Four were already called the Fantastic Four before they got their powers. Like they were already a science team, like a space team, and that's why they were called the Fantastic Four. But on their planet, I think part of the idea is they're meant to be celebrities like the Avengers inside the MCU. So when they open the doors here at the top of their tower, their Baxter Building, it's a little bit like the Avengers getting off the top floor of the Avengers Tower, which they just did in the Thunderbolts trailer in the new Avengers Tower that Val bought and redesigned. So a little bit of this Fantastic Four trailer is aping some of the classic Avengers trailers. They also start the trailer playing the new Fantastic Four theme song too, which they released online. I put it on my Twitter account, so I'll link it down in the description below. I can't put the whole thing in the video just for copyright reasons. Reed Richards talks about doing family dinner every week, no matter what's going on. You have to remember that they're being superheroes in their universe now, so it'd be like the Avengers saying, we have a family dinner with the Avengers every week. That scene was actually featured in the leaked version of the trailer that's been online since Comic-Con last year. I've already done a couple of videos about that, but then they transitioned to the 1960s looking version of the Marvel Studios logo, which is actually pretty cool. Notice the blue and white coloration because the Fantastic Four colors their costumes. But then the screen widens to 16:9, reminding you that it's 4:3 because it's the 1960s, which is kind of funny because they have this advanced technology, like Reed Richards, smartest man alive, developed clean energy and all this really cool spacefaring technology, but all the TVs are still 4:3. They're not 16:9 yet, like they don't have flat screens yet. We get a better look at the newer version of the Baxter Building, which is colored blue and white like the Fantastic Four colors. During all the footage we saw before, it didn't have the actual Four logo on it, so I'm assuming this happened after they came back, they had their powers, and they started being superheroes. A little bit like Tony Stark redesigning the Stark Tower and turning it into the newer Avengers Tower. Then we finally see Herbie. They actually teased that he was going to be in the movie. Herbie is a huge deep cut too because he didn't actually come from the original comics. He actually debuted on one of the original Fantastic Four cartoons and then they put him into the comics. There was a deleted scene from the Chris Evans Fantastic Four movies where they reference Herbie. And we finally get our first look at Ebon Moss-Bachrach in full Thing form. Notice he's wearing his Fantastic Four suit like he's been out doing superhero stuff. This is actually the same version of the suit that we saw in all the promos last year. All this talk about him being kind of a chef, really good at cooking with Herbie here, also feels like an Easter egg for The Bear. If you don't watch The Bear TV show, Ebon Moss-Bachrach is fantastic on that show. I would recommend checking it out. I'm gonna guess that Matt Shakman, who directed the movie, is just a big fan of The Bear. Like, we have to have a scene where he talks about cooking stuff. Notice that he still has taste buds even though he is in full rock form. That's just his exterior. His interior, like he still has regular organs like a normal human. The other obvious thing is they're doing him motion capture, unlike Chris Evans' Fantastic Four era where it was a physical thing suit. He actually said when they were making this movie, Mark Ruffalo actually gave him some advice because the Hulk is all motion capture. One of the only other person in the Marvel movies that has done more motion capture than Mark Ruffalo is Andy Serkis. Like, the two of them together have done more motion capture than pretty much anybody else in the world. Then they cross-cut the footage of them in the past before they gotten their powers, about to go on that first mission that they referenced when Reed Richards said, "Remember the last time we did this, we didn't have powers," while he's also opening up the blackboard, looking at all those equations. Like I said, I think that has something to do with the whole concept of the multiverse and his idea about how they're going to make it to the MCU universe from their universe at the end of the movie. Rumor is that something really bad happens in their universe. Maybe it gets destroyed, maybe there's an incursion, or it has something to do with Galactus or Franklin Richards. But skipping forward in the trailer, obviously this is Galactus looking down from the back of his head. Like, you don't get a front shot of Galactus, so you don't actually see his face, but you can kind of imagine. I love the way they reveal him in the trailer too, where first you see it raining fire from the sky, like this is the coming of Galactus, but then you actually see him standing on the planet. It's kind of hard to tell the scale, but he doesn't look quite as big as I expected him to. Maybe he just shrinks himself a little bit when he's standing on the planet. And even though we haven't had a full look at him yet at Galactus, I do give Marvel full credit for actually trying to make him look more comic book accurate. No more floaty cloud Galactus. Maybe there'll be a joke about that in the movie. He's actually going to be voiced by Ralph Ineson. We don't actually hear him speak during the trailer, like we don't hear Galactus speak, so we'll see. And we also don't see the Silver Surfer, who was also supposed to be in the movie. Maybe they'll save them for like one of the last big trailers. They show their launch. It's meant to be from their original launch. We actually saw a version of this in the teaser trailer yesterday. Them in bed reminiscing about how their lives have changed since they've gotten powers. We actually see them on their spaceship. Notice the sparks, things blowing up all around them. This is probably after they're hit by the cosmic storm that gives them their powers. Sue Storm starts randomly turning invisible. Reed Richards trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Then they talk about Ben Grimm. He walks through the alleyway at night in that trench coat, still kind of dealing with the PTSD, getting used to his new body as he's in rock form. Watching the video of himself from before he got turned into the Thing. This scene also reminds me of the Chris Evans Fantastic Four movies where that version of the Thing was actually walking around in a trench coat just like this. Then we get our first Johnny Storm Human Torch. You have to compare this to Chris Evans' Human Torch during Deadpool and Wolverine when he came back. It looks like they have upgraded their fire effects for Human Torch just in general. Like the effects in this movie, he looks distinct from Chris Evans' version of Human Torch, but because both of those movies were made in the last couple of years, they have the benefit of all the modern technology to pull that off. So if you go back and you watch the old Fantastic Four movies from the early 2000s, it obviously looks a little bit better than that. Sue Storm's still talking to him while they're in bed, but they flash a couple other scenes of them all being a family together. Like, that's the whole thing they're trying to get across in the trailer, is that they're still a family before and after they get their powers. She makes the reference to Ben being a rock, like the Rock of Gibraltar, like he's always been very stalwart. There are a couple of sly references to Johnny Storm being a bit of a hothead, quote-unquote, make all the jokes about Chris Evans' Fantastic Four. My assumption is he won't be quite as big an asshole as Chris Evans' Human Torch was during his movies, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are a few references to that rivalry between him and the Thing from the comics. More like a playful rivalry the way the brothers act together. Not totally sure why he's flying into space here, the upper atmosphere. This feels like a Superman shot too, like you see in one of Superman's movies. You notice that he hangs there, though, and slowly turns back into human form, like his powers suppress back to normal, and he's basically there in the upper atmosphere, so you have to imagine that he's going to start panicking as he falls back to Earth. Hopefully on the way down, his powers reactivate and he's able to fly again, because it is a long way down. Then they show a scene of Sue Storm in her suit, using her powers, taking someone down. Notice all the debris all around them, like in the middle of the street here. Not totally sure which villain they're fighting here, but you can see the Fantastic car in the background. When the movie picks up, I think the idea is that they've actually fought some of their classic villains already. Maybe there'll be a montage for that or be some references in the background. Just because we do see John Malkovich, for instance, who seems like he's going to be playing somebody important in the movie. The movie on the marquee in the background says Sub-Zero. Her using her powers also provides a good point of comparison for the Jessica Alba version of Sue Storm. Just like the Human Torch fire effects have gotten a little bit better with modern technology, the way they're visualizing her abilities just look a little bit more refined than Jessica Alba's, but hers were already pretty decent. Generally, in terms of tone of the movie, I would say that this is going to be somewhere in between the much funnier, much lighter version of the classic Chris Evans Fantastic Four movies and the way darker, way more serious version of the 2015 Fantastic Four movie. Part of the idea Kevin Feige said setting this in the 1960s of this other universe was that they wanted it to feel more like the actual classic comics which started in the 1960s. So a lot of this is meant to carry a lot of the tone of those original comics. Then it seems like one night when they're just all chilling out on the balcony, that's when Galactus comes. And I think this fire coming from the sky, all this debris, is the coming of Galactus. And it is meant to be a version of that arc that they're adapting from the comics when Galactus first appeared in the comics. All the kids wearing the Fantastic Four merch on the ground also watching Galactus roll up to the club. Not totally sure what's going on with the Fantastic car racing through traffic here, but it can also fly. We saw it fly during the Comic-Con trailer. When we see Johnny Storm flying through all these buildings, I can't quite make out the blurry text here on the water tower. There's some billboards in the background too that are a little too blurry. Let me know if you think you can see what they say. We get a shot of Ben Grimm charging somebody through the streets. This is full clobbering time. They actually made a joke about that when they were launching the trailer, like everybody say clobbering time to the person standing next to you. So we will say it during the actual movie. We see John Malkovich, and just looking at his costume here, it's kind of hard to tell who he's playing. They did not reveal who that is. It's a bit of a mystery, so let me know in the comments who you think he's actually playing. My assumption is that it is somebody from the Fantastic Four classic comics. This shot of Reed Richards seems like after they've gotten their powers, like after the accident has happened on their first flight to space. Then we see in broad daylight the shadow of Galactus over the New York City landscape and the back of Galactus' head as he rolls up to the Baxter Building. Here they're using the Statue of Liberty just to show you the scale. But he is purple, and so far, at least from the back of his head, he does look comic book accurate. Rumor is the reason why he comes to Earth is because he senses the birth of Franklin Richards, because the title of the movie is actually Fantastic Four First Steps, which is a reference to Franklin Richards' first steps as a baby. He's supposed to be born during the events of the movie. And he is one of the most powerful characters that Marvel has ever introduced, so we will see how they deal with that during this movie and in the MCU eventually, when they do eventually travel to the MCU before Avengers Doomsday. Just to give you the comparison, Galactus becomes the herald of Franklin Richards eventually. That's how powerful Franklin Richards is. He's one of the only people that Galactus is actually afraid of. When it comes to Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom, I've said this in previous videos, but like I said, I don't think we're going to see him in any of the trailers, maybe some loose references to him, but I think part of the idea is that when the movie begins, because the Fantastic Four have already had their origin story, they've already faced some of their villains, they've already met their version of Doctor Doom in this universe, so they've already met that Robert Downey Jr. version. But whatever winds up happening at the end of this movie that requires the Fantastic Four to have to go to the MCU to survive, like they have to escape to the MCU, supposedly Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom will also escape this universe and make it to the MCU eventually. But they haven't really explained the mechanics behind that, why it happens, just like the story that actually drives that decision. And the way that Kevin Feige has explained his character is that he's not just an Iron Man variant who grew up Tony Stark and then changed his name to Doctor Doom, but really he's just Tony Stark with the Doctor Doom name. Is actually meant to be a Victor Von Doom that just happens to look like Tony Stark in another universe. I've given a couple of my early theories about how they're going to explain that, he was just raised by the Von Dooms, so he was never Tony Stark, maybe he was born to Howard and Maria Stark and then adopted by the Von Dooms. There are a couple ways to explain why he looks exactly like Tony Stark but just happens to be a Von Doom. Then we hear more of their theme song and they're standing here like they're being filmed for television, this feels like some sort of in-universe promo for their actual team, for whatever news crew's filming this. One of the other big questions about this alternate Earth in the 1960s when this movie is taking place is, are there going to be Easter eggs for MCU stuff that existed in the 1960s of the MCU just in this other universe in different forms? Is there a Howard and Maria Stark that exists here? Is there going to be a version of the Winter Soldier who's running around in this universe? Did Captain America exist in this universe? I'm assuming there'll be at least a couple of those kinds of Easter eggs, here's the familiar version of something from the MCU, but it's slightly different because it's an alternate universe. They kind of did that during Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. But at least when this movie is going on, there is no Avengers team in this universe. The Fantastic Four are basically like the Avengers, the big heroes of this world when Galactus shows up. But there's a whole bunch of footage here. It's just the first teaser trailer, so obviously the next big trailer will actually give us some of the actual story. We'll find out a little bit more about what's going on with Galactus during the movie, with Franklin Richards, maybe with the Silver Surfer. There's just a couple really big characters that are not featured in this trailer in a really big way. So everybody just post all your theories and your reactions in the comments below. There's a ton of stuff coming up. I'll do more Fantastic Four videos soon, but we also have Invincible Season 3 episodes starting in a couple days, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss anything. There's going to be a bunch more Super Bowl trailers coming this week too, so of course I will do videos for as much of that stuff as possible. Everybody click here for all those, and click here for all my other Fantastic Four videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.